All right, so do you have to have things just right in the silverware drawer? I mean, stacked up perfectly. Do you have a certain way you have to stand when you hit a certain light switch in your house? Is that OCD? If it is, it can be perhaps torturous in that you are hobbled in your functioning. I think we all have a little bit of OCD, obsessive-compulsive disorder. But as you know, I am not an expert on much of anything. That's why we have experts. Hey, it's our What's Up Doc section. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services, drjohnb.com on the web, and a good friend of the show. Hey, Doc, how's it going?
Well, very good, and a good topic today. I think you gave a good introduction there, Mike, because obsessive-compulsive disorder, boy, it can be psychological torture for the person who has it's a cycle of obsessing on an act or thought. You have severe anxiety about eliminating it, and then you complete it with a compulsive act or thought to try to relieve this debilitating anxiety. Now, while the OCD sequence can relate to a seemingly almost endless list of thoughts and behaviors, they really commonly do rotate around certain areas, okay? Extreme cleanliness would be one, and hatred of dirt or germs, hand washing, okay? Hoarding, keeping things in a rigid or symmetrical manner. That's what you were talking about there in terms of silverware, certainware, putting your clothes in a certain thing. And boy, when you can take a half hour in the morning just making sure everything is right in your apartment, your house before you leave. Numbers is another area, and making sure over and over again you've locked the door or turned out the lights. I mean, these are things that just can really, I don't want to say fully drive a person crazy, but they can really wear them down. And I think really the good example is the person constantly washing their hands. And they can only relieve the belief their hands are not dirty by constantly washing them. They do it over and over. You might even see someone whose hands can really kind of get raw, even red from washing all the time. And
Howie Mandel is one of those guys. He's famously like that. He doesn't even like to touch people.
Well, I mean, when you get to that point, and we're looking at pretty large numbers, we're looking at 1 to 3%. So if at 1%, we're talking about over 3 million in the country. So we're talking about a lot of people with this. I remember about a house hoarder that had so much stuff in his house. His solution was not to get rid of the things he had, but to buy another house. I mean, that's kind of an extreme. And then, as you mentioned, the wanting to have an orderly room. That's a reasonable thing, or having an orderly room or clean hands. But when it gets carried away, then you have the trouble with the OCD, when the symptoms begin to interfere with your life, and this resulting anxiety and attempting to resolve it with rituals and time-consuming activities. When this happens, then it really becomes a problem. Again, a lot of people are orderly. A lot of people like things structured, but it's when it really starts interfering, with your life. Now, another note to mention is that persons with OCD can also have additional diagnoses, because there can be anxiety, there can be depression, ADHD, and these can also be heightened by this OCD. And over the years, I've talked to many people and can verify just how torturous this can be. I've talked to persons who are so concerned about food in a restaurant that they will pick through it with a fork and knife to make sure there are no bugs or other forms of dirt in it. If you look around, you will periodically see people that are doing that. Others won't even go to a restaurant. They have the utterly unreasonable belief that there's always going to be food contamination, they could die, or something horrible could happen. I mean, you might argue that in a very rare case that might happen, but my goodness, if you get to that point, that's a pretty severe situation. I've also known persons obsessed with the air they're breathing or the water they're drinking. And so they're never comfortable. Breathing. Well, you'll find people check OSHA complaints. They will, even if they're working in a building, they'll be checking if there's any gas or whatever. I mean, when people get into this OCD syndrome, they get to know everything about the area they're concerned about. And sometimes there can even be a reasonable concern, but when you take it to the point that you you really can't function, then you really have really lost it. And there are a lot more people like this than you might think. There are people that lose jobs. There's people that lose spouses. Because they can't get over it. It's a hard thing to get over. A lot of people never fully get over it. They really have to gradually desensitize, and they have to get to the point that they just move on or learn to live with some of these obsessions, these compulsions, that get them under control. That's why I think it is important. Go ahead.
Well, that's my question. There is, we can understand it. But how do you deal with it then? How do you treat it as a doctor? What do you do?
Well, there's a combination of things. Medication can be helpful in terms of helping settle a person down. Certainly different types of medication, some of the antidepressants, some of the anxiety. Also, in terms of cognitive behavioral therapy, where people rethink things, start rethinking, reorganizing in their mind, start using positive thoughts, trying to kick negative thoughts out. And also desensitization. I mean, one of the obvious ones is when people are fearful, this phobia about flying, if you will. They have OCD. They're convinced the plane's going down. Well, you kind of desensitize yourself. You get to the point you might go near the airport. You just get used to being at the airport. You get used to plane sounds. You in your own mind start seeing yourself on the plane. You prepare yourself. Okay, you do things.
Okay.
You do things like that. And part of it is just trying to recognize you have it and start really working on desensitizing and getting to the point that the thing that you're obsessed about, that you keep it in place, in a reasonable place. Like, okay, I do have this. This is something that really bothers me, and I'm going to have to come to grips with it. I'm going to have to take control of it. I'm going to have to realize certain things about it, like this isn't really going to ruin my life. That basically, and then leaving, and then back on it. If you're putting your clothes and everything in a certain sequence, you're actually going to have to get to the point you're going to have to deal with the anxiety that you're going to have to just not do it sometimes, okay? And recognize it's going to be difficult, and you have to. It seems kind of ridiculous because the things about OCD, they just don't make sense to the average person. They'll say, well, golly, how can a person be so worried about washing their hands all the time? Or how can they be so worried?
They're just socks in the sock drawer. They don't have to face the right way all the time. They're in a sock drawer.
And I've worked with people that they'll hop when they come into the office, or like almost like on sequence. They'll put that's right. They'll hop in. They'll put you might not even really notice that they've come to the point that in order to feel comfortable going into a room, they kind of hop the way they will walk, or they will touch something. Like they will every now and then, like go put their hands through their hair, or they'll tap their knee. They're things that people pick up that, and in order to satisfy it, see, it's a torturous thing. You get this thought. You're like, I just use the hand washing. It's an easy one. Like, my hands are dirty. Okay, so you go wash them, and then you're done, right? Okay, but no, all of a sudden you're thinking, well, I really wonder if I got everything. Okay, then you go back and wash it again, and so it's the compulsion. You have the obsession, the thought about the cleanliness of the hands. Okay, but then it's the thought in your own mind. You become torturous. Well, golly, are they dirty yet? What's going to happen? Could I touch my mouth? Something bad happened to me. Right, having dirty hands. So what do? You go and you cleanse them, clean your hands, and then that kind of makes you feel better. But you can see the sequence if this happens over and over again, or even another one where you're going and checking the lights. Did you turn the lights? Like, let's say you go somewhere and you park your car, okay, and then all of a sudden, golly, I wonder if I locked my car. And you can go back 100 times, Mike, and 100 times find out the door is locked. You do it kind of automatically, but you don't believe it. Or even if when you left, you made sure you locked it. You leave and you say, well, I wonder if the key in my pocket, I wonder if I somehow didn't lock it. So back you go. These are the things that happen to people. And when these occur, and they grow often, you get more of them along the way too. So you really do have to take a look at this. These torturous almost like another person in your life controlling it in a very, very negative way. So this is where, getting an evaluation by a psychologist, checking medication with your family physician, these are the type of things can help you if it gets to the point where it's debilitating you and you're really having trouble functioning, because when this really hits people, it can really cause a lot of havoc for them.
Be trouble. Wow. Dr. John Braccio, Regional Psychological Services. Find him at drjohnb.com. Are you obsessive compulsive? Maybe you're just a normal person who just likes things a certain way. Well, you got to get evaluated. Hey, Doc, we're up on time. We appreciate your time here on your morning wake up.
But there's always hope. You can overcome these things. I'll talk to you later.
Right.
Good talking to you, Mike.
Thanks, buddy. See ya. 1320 WILS.